Hey, everybody. I'm on here a little bit late this week, but today we're going to be talking about GLP1 medications. So, what is that? You can't go too far looking through social media, especially TikTok, I think, or talk to someone who hasn't had some drastic weight loss or is looking for drastic weight loss by using these medications called GLP1s. They're a GLP1 agonist, but basically what it does is it is a glucagon-like peptide. What that means is it allows your blood sugar, insulin, glucagon system work in your body. Now, if you followed me for any length of time, you know that I talk a lot about balancing blood sugar. You know that that is a big part of what I do. Everything that I make recommendations for the majority of the people that I work with, we're looking at how to best optimize their blood sugars for best outcomes for whatever their health goals may be. So, what this means for you now, there's a lot of bad information out there. Just like anything we can make in our society when it comes to health and wellness and nutrition, we pretty much can bastardize everything to make it be not good for us, right? It's not helpful for us, or it can have some detrimental effects. But first off, what it does, how this can actually benefit people, is it what I'm hearing the most part is that it shuts off the food noise. Okay, it shuts off the people's like talking about the need for food or the cravings and that kind of inability to shut off the need to put food in your mouth, whether you're hungry or not. It not only just suppresses your appetite, it absolutely does that, but it suppresses your appetite in your brain, if that helps and makes sense. So that is something that can be done in a little bit of a slower method if you are talking about balancing the blood sugar, keeping junk foods out, trying to not reach for the sugary quick fixes and all the chemicals in our foods that keep us reaching and wanting to do that kind of thing and looking to eat all the time, whether we are hungry or not. That is kind of the problem. And that's where people get fed up and then they jump towards these medications. Now, they're often branded for type 2 diabetes. And then people are all up in an uproar about other people using them just for weight loss. And then people with diabetes are not able to get their medications. Maybe that was true in the beginning. I am not sure if that's really the case now. But bottom line is that there are two sort of big prescription medications right now that people are utilizing these types of medications or this type of peptide, and it's called Ozempic. And then there's another one called Mounjaro. And insurance isn't covering these very well, relatively speaking. You have to get coupons for them to make them even remotely affordable for most people. Now, the core of these medications are called peptides. Peptides are basically the building blocks, the portions of proteins, the different parts and pieces that put proteins together to help us, pretty much do everything. We need proteins for absolutely everything. But the peptide is a portion of that in a medication form, usually in an injection. And usually it's a once weekly injection to aid in, whatever it's targeting. And just to be clear, there are peptides for pretty much everything. You can get peptides for not just weight loss, not just for balancing blood sugar or lowering blood sugar and helping that blood sugar insulin process work, but you can get peptides for growth hormone. You can get peptides for muscle building. You can get peptides for fat loss. You can just go on and on and on. They're not all prescription, however. So another way that people are utilizing these or getting these are from different providers, like legitimate providers who will use compounding pharmacies. Now, the FDA has cracked down on a lot of these compounding pharmacies for whatever reason. I think that they would rather promote, things like Ozempic or Mounjaro, the brand name medications. And so I know I've spoken to a few compounding pharmacies, and they are having to be super careful about some of the things that they're actually filling for some of these doctors who are requesting a compounded peptide. What a compounded medication means, it's a legitimate medication. It's just, think of it as more custom. Okay, like a custom peptide or a custom, like I have in the past taken compounded thyroid medication. It's a thing, it's legitimate, it's real, and it's actually how pharmacies used to pretty much be all the time. So what this is that people will now be prescribed the peptide, and the Ozempic has something called semaglutide or semaglutide, however you want to pronounce it. They will use it in a compounded formula, and they might add something else into it, like maybe another peptide. Maybe they add vitamin B6 to help with nausea. Maybe they add something else. Okay. Then the other kind of main thing that we're talking about, there's the brand name Mounjaro, but it's brand name for the peptide tirzepatide. Now, tirzepatide also can be compounded, and oftentimes there's less nausea with that one. It's usually more expensive, but it has less of a side effect of the nausea, and it is often compounded with things like folate or B12 to help with some, energy. So that's the difference between a synthetic brand name of a medication versus the compounding pharmacy version. So everybody can do it a little bit differently. All right, so those are some of the benefits of it. It can help you lose weight. It helps you shut off the brain with regard to how you want to eat food. It can help you reduce your appetite, and therefore you will lose weight. So we always have the other side of things where you can lose the weight. Often you can lose it quickly. Often people start to have some muscle wasting. Sometimes people aren't eating enough. And we end up with people, you can kind of see some of it sometimes, where people have lost significant amount of weight, and then they have kind of a sunken look in their face. They look like, and they might feel and might be able to report back to you that they maybe don't feel as strong. They have a harder time building muscle and all that kind of thing. So it is imperative that if you are doing these kinds of medications, that you have the proper nutrition, because you're probably not going to feel like eating too much. You have to counterbalance this. You have to listen to your body, but you also have to think functionally, as in, what am I doing that's going to help set me up for success down the road? Because you don't want this to be like anything else, where you take the medicine, you lose the weight, you eventually go off of it because after a while it's probably way too expensive, and then you just haven't changed anything with your nutrition. You go back to eating how you're eating, and then you gain all the weight back, plus more, because now you have reduced muscle mass, you have reduced lean body mass, and so your metabolism has now plummeted. So we don't need to do that. That is not what we need to do. So the first thing that I always recommend people do, I do consultations for a provider who provides compounded peptide therapy for weight loss for people, as well as some other peptides. But when we're talking about people doing it for weight loss, I do nutrition consults for them specifically to help them preempt this situation. So if that's something you're interested in checking into, please reach out. I'll put a link to the peptide package in the comments of this video, so that you can access them and get the support you need. If you are from Minnesota, North Dakota, I have a provider that can get you what you need for that. If you are someone who has been on peptides or is currently on peptides and would really, for weight loss specifically, if you would like nutrient support on that, it would be really important to do. I will put a link for that as well. So some of the things you need to do is to 100% focus on the intake of your protein. So be very protein forward thinking and putting your meals together. Do not skimp on the protein. It might be hard sometimes to actually want to eat, much less eat protein, because it's very filling in and of itself. But you're going to have to probably power through this, and you won't always have this really, really low appetite throughout this process. So you have to make sure you are aware of that. So get that protein in where you can. Now, the recommendation for women is 1 pound for every pound of lean body mass, or your lean body weight goal. So let's say you feel your best at 120 pounds, and you feel like You don't have to starve yourself to be there. You don't have to over exercise to stay at that weight when everything is balanced and all your other things are in check. That would be what you base this on. So then you would look at that you need to have 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight. That is your goal. And so that would get you to the goal of 120 grams of protein per day. Now, if you do a food tracker and just track your protein, you will see where you're at. Just take an average of 3 or 5 days of average protein intake and start where you're at and add from there. So if you find you're only eating 50 grams of protein, for example, per day, and your goal is 120, don't just start eating 120, like the next day. What you need to do is build up to it so that you're digesting and assimilating. And if your gut health isn't in check, if you have a lot of acid reflux, if you feel like protein sits in your stomach for too long, if you feel like you have constipation, diarrhea on and off, if you feel like you have bloating, be careful with this. We need to get your gut health in check as well. But just so you know, if you start out and you're averaging about 50 grams, then just add, say, 20 grams over the next 2 weeks and work up to 70 grams. Then do another couple of weeks and add to 90 grams, etc. You get my point. Just add slowly. Now, if you're someone who you feel like when you eat protein, it just sits in your stomach for too long, it feels like there's a rock in there, then you might want to go a little bit slower, but you probably more than likely need some digestive enzyme with some hydrochloric acid in it. That will help to increase your body's ability to absorb, break down, and assimilate the protein, all those peptides, those amino acids that come from protein to help you, feel better. Now, I won't go into all the talk about how important proteins are for you, but they're super important. They do absolutely everything. They're the building blocks of life. They're part of your DNA. They build your immune system. They build your skin, hair, and nails. They help you build the proper hormones and produce the proper hormones. They are so, so important. So absolutely make sure you're getting that protein. So yes, we want that for now to maintain your muscle mass. And we want that to help to, keep being able to repair and rebuild the tissues in your bodies. But once you're off of that peptide and you maybe have, you should have learned to adjust your nutrient intake. It's going to probably feel and look a little bit different. You need to keep eating a protein because that'll keep balancing your blood sugar. That will keep the process going. It'll keep you satisfied. It'll keep you from having the cravings and the wanting to eat all these things all the time. All right, so protein, protein, protein. Then when it comes to exercise, it is imperative that you incorporate resistance training. For some reason, women tend to lean towards cardio training. And we're not ever told that it's important for women to maintain or build muscle or eat enough protein. That's just not something that we are told very often. We're often told, you don't want to bulk up, or I don't want to lift too much for weights and then get bulky and all that kind of thing and gain weight from that. But that's not going to happen if you're eating the right kind of protein. If everything else you're eating is in check, you're going to only do good for your body and help your outcome after peptide therapy, whether you've just done peptide therapy for weight loss, or if you're thinking about starting peptide therapy, you want to get this in check now. Like I said, I can support that either through helping you get the peptides through their proper channels, or I can help you if you've been through that process and are seeing that maybe you've lost some muscle mass, maybe you've gotten flabbier, maybe you have kind of that sunken cheek look, sunken in the face look from maybe losing some protein and muscle mass and that kind of thing. I can help you with that. So making sure that your exercise is weight bearing, and not only just weight bearing, but that is actually taxing your muscles, 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week minimum. All right. So make sure that you are doing that weight bearing Cardiovascular exercise is great too. A nice little walk or yoga or something like that after your dinner is great for helping your insulin sensitivity and balancing that blood sugar. But we really need to focus on building that muscle so that we can maintain that muscle. So that is basically what I have for you today. If you have questions, reach out in the comments, DM me, private message me, anything you want. And like I said, in the comments, I'll make sure to put the links to either the peptide nutrition package or the peptide counseling package, and make sure that you look at which one is appropriate for you. And I'd love to help you out. Make sure you get the best possible outcomes for your weight loss treatment that you possibly can. All right. Have a great day.